Hi everyone, it's Tony here, and today I've got a really exciting video, very resourceful, that you can use to get into the whole world of 3D modeling. Even if you have been 3D modeling, this will be a really valuable tool because I'm going to show you how I use various tools and leverage the power of those tools to create custom products for our clients. So yeah, strap in. It's going to be a great video. We're going to do a live build with these tools. So let's get into it. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tony Kutsunikolas. I'm a 3D printing entrepreneur and I've benefited greatly from 3D printing and now want to share my knowledge and experience with you guys. So I have invented a glass 3D printing technology. I sold that around the world. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. And now I'm really into the whole additive experience. I'm all in, and my wife and I now run a business where we create custom products online, and we make a living doing that. And that's what we do from our custom built workshop at home, which I'm in right now. So I've done a lot of hard work. I've spent a lot of hours figuring out these technologies and seeing like what they can do and how they can be leveraged. So I really want to share that with you guys, basically get you up to speed and accelerate you to be able to create these 3D models, but then print them and then get them into your customers' hands. So let's get into it. Okay, we're going to split the video up into two phases. So we're going to start with finding a model on MakerWorld. That's Bamboo Labs online repository. Then we're going to create a scalar vector graphic. So basically we're going to customize that part that we found with some text or an image, and we can do that through Inkscape. It's really powerful and effective. Actually, I'll show you how to use AI to even modify your 3D print. It's super basic. I'm going to show you a little bit about how these kind of organic shapes are made. So when you see a 3D model that's like a figurine or something that kind of flows, we are usually talking about mesh editing programs. So Autodesk Meshmixer is one of those programs, and basically that will allow us to like sculpt by hand, kind of like an artist. We're like moving clay. So that's what that program will do. If you're more interested in the geometric side of things, so more like standard shapes or engineering type things, or just kind of like basic forms, then we're going to be looking at Tinkercad and Onshape. So we're going to make an accessory for this part above using Tinkercad and Onshape, and then we're going to take those parts that we've made, basically the custom product that we've made, and we're going to convert them into we're going to prepare them for 3D printing. All right, so the first thing what we're going to do is access MakerWorld, which is through Bamboo Studio. So let's do that. Let's go to, so I had this open from before. Let me just delete everything. Bang. All right, so go to home and click on online models. And what I want to do is create a product for one of our stores. So this is just an idea kind of session, but I'm going to show you all the tools. So there's some demand, or at least we've heard some demand for in one of our stores that a necklace holder or something with jewelry would be nice. So I'm going to find a necklace holder that I like, and this is the one here that I actually want to use. So you could find whichever one you want, but this one's going to be really good for us. So I'm going to download and open that. For starters, if you wanted to sell this to a store, you could just go hit slice and print, and then you're done. If you want to customize it, you can do that as well. So I want to show you how to kind of add that little bit of pizzazz. So everyone wants something custom and unique these days. This is what like people are willing to pay for. And with 3D printing and 3D modeling, you can like really automate that process. So if we go back and look at our Figma, we've already got our model off MakerWorld. So the next step is to customize that using Inkscape. So we can actually import an image. In this case, we're going to import an image and deboss it onto this jewelry stand. So if I go back to here, if I open up Inkscape, so it's all free. This is like a drawing program that you can make scalar vector graphics, SVG files for. New document. And those SVG files, those vector graphics, are really easy to like extrude and actually make a 3D model out of. So I'll show you how easy it is. So this particular store, it's an Australian native store, and bottle brush is a really popular plant that they have and they sell, and it's like iconic in Australia. So I've basically just Googled and found an image of that. I'm going to copy that and go back over to Inkscape and paste it in there. So it just pastes like that. And I've got this trace bitmap up, but if I got rid of that, I go to path and then trace bitmap, and you can see that it's kind of like created this image here. So what actually is that? Well, convert your image into a 3D or a scalar vector graphic, which we're going to convert to 3D. So this looks pretty good for what the image is. Like, there's a lot of detail here, and it's done a good job trying to capture most of it. But I can optimize it through here, so I can update preview and kind of it's smoothing a lot of the corners, so maybe that's too much. And I can muck around with these settings. Maybe the threshold. Yeah, there we go. The threshold's probably the one that you want to change most. Yeah, there we go. So if I want to 3D print it, maybe something like that will be a good, like, kind of debossed into this necklace holder. So I can click apply, and you can see that now if I click on that, it created the vector graphic, and I actually have that on the side here. So actually, now that I'm looking at it, I don't really like how I can't see in between any of these details. So I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to put that threshold down and hit update preview and then apply. Yeah, now I can see a bit more of those details in between. So I don't need the image anymore. I've got my scalar vector graphic, and I can save that to my desktop as bottle brush SVG. Oh, I did this before. Replace. And now I can head back over to here, and if I have my model selected, I can go to my desktop, find my SVG, and actually just literally drag it onto there. Now it just dumps it in at the size that it was, but you can change the size here like that. And I'm using the tools now to kind of manipulate it. It's obviously too thick, so we're going to have to change that too. So I kind of move it into the position that I want. I'm going to go back here on my objects and right click bottle brush, edit SVG. That opens up this kind of menu again, or you can click that button there. And then I'm going to change it to 1 millimeter and actually want to cut into the part. But you can see how it's like it's just kind of straight. It's not like following the surface. So if I hit use surface, it'll kind of curve with that. There we go. All right. So it's going to cut out this image now. Well, it was an image. Now it's a scalar vector graphic. It's going to cut that into our part. And you can see that we have this kind of subtle but like nice little touch for that store. They're not just selling now a necklace holder. It's like a necklace holder now that fits into their aesthetic. And I might want to even print that in like a nice kind of sagey color that kind of represents like the greenery or the vegetation. So it just depends what people wanted. So that is basically how to customize a 3D model that you found online into like with an image essentially. So really powerful tool. We use it all the time. Like you can use it to write people's names in things or put their logos on objects. Yeah, super valuable resource. Like a lot of people pay good money for these types of customizations, and they're quite expensive to make in other methods, but with 3D printing that can be quite affordable, so it's a win-win for everyone. Let's jump into Meshmixer now. So I'm going to open up Meshmixer, and say I wasn't totally happy with this necklace holder and I wanted to make a change, or maybe I wanted to add a part. So I'm going to import the file that we downloaded. So I already have it downloaded. And you can see that we're now in Meshmixer. So this is just the part that we found, we downloaded. If you click W, you can see the triangles that make this 3D model. Okay, so with mesh editing programs, you can do a lot of sculpting, or you can change, and what we'll have to do if we wanted to sculpt this, we could smooth out a region, for example. But if I look at this, these triangles are really big. So when it doesn't like kind of work, because these are really large kind of faces that this is trying to affect. but we need a lot of triangles. So the first thing I usually do if I have a 3D model like this that I want to sculpt is I will go in here and click make solid. So this will basically convert the part into a grid of these meshes, and I can increase the accuracy here. I'm just going to leave it as the defaults for now. I'll click accept, and now if I wanted to sculpt, maybe I can go back to sculpt, and I can go to bubble smooth. For example, it's a really powerful tool, and you can smooth out certain surfaces or edges or whatever it is. So now I've just slightly rounded the corner there, and I can do the same on the other side if I wanted to. I'm not going to, because what I'm actually interested in is importing and adding, so appending a little owl into this. So just trying to show you guys a little bit of how you kind of use these technologies together. So I've got this owl, it's just dumped it in again, edit, transform. I'm going to move this into place. And now I've got my owl necklace holder. Awesome. So I'm going to accept that. I'm going to select both of these by holding down shift and then left clicking them. So if I go combine, I'll now be able to export these as one piece. So I go file, export, necklace holder with owl. I did this before. Replace that, and it's going to export it now as an STL. And we're going to jump back into Bamboo Studio. Now, if I make another bed, I can import. There it is. So I could just print this with support material if I want, or have another think about how I make it. Maybe in this case, I decide to cut it in half, so I can hit cut here and then kind of cut down to like there if I want to. And I'm going to keep the top object, which is in blue, not the bottom one, which is in purple. So I'm going to uncheck that and then hit perform cut. And now if I printed this, I've got a nice flat first layer, no support material required. So if that's what I wanted, then that's what I can have. I've got my little owl necklace holder. And if I follow the same steps, I can put that little bottle brush image in there as well onto this face. So this is really powerful. Use a few of these tools. You can customize and do quite a lot with this technology. So now we're going to jump into phase 2. We can look at some geometric designing tools. We're going to look at Tinkercad and Onshape, and then we're going to prepare our files for printing. So I had to move out into the backyard. The print farm is being used today, so it was going to be a bit too noisy in there. So all right, so once you're in Tinkercad and you've created an account, click on create and 3D design. So what we're going to make now, we're going to pivot a little bit. So we've created a custom necklace holder for this store. But let's say that they also sell kind of homewares and stuff like that. So we might want to sell a coaster, for example. So it's a very common item, really popular and high volume kind of item. And especially if you can get the design right and the colors right of when you 3D print it, you could sell a lot of these. So you can see this is Tinkercad. You can drop a lot of different shapes in. I've just clicked and dropped a cylinder in, and I can change the size by oops, sorry, no, that's the accuracy. I can change the size if I click on it and click. Where is it? Yeah, click on these buttons here. So, what's the common size for a coaster? 50 mil. So 5 centimeters. Is that too big? Maybe. So if I'm making a coaster, I can be done with that if I want, but maybe I want to embed more into this, in which case I could add a drawing to that surface. So now I can actually draw what I was going to draw. So if I'm an artist, I can get creative here. I'm an engineer, so I'm not going to try and show off my skills, but I could, let's get back there. So I'm just going to actually use a pencil, and I'm going to create some sort of effect that we're going to kind of place over this item. So this is like a texture. Now you can do this a lot of ways. I showed you just previously that you can use an image to do this. So you could even just draw these by hand and then take a photo of it and then import it. That was in phase 1. So go back and have a look at that if you want to see more. But in this case, if you want it to be all in one program, you could just do it this way. So if I click, this is my texture drawing. It's not very beautiful, but it'll do the job for now. But once I'm done, I can put that in there. And what I'm actually going to do is resize this so it's quite big. And we're going to kind of cut this out of our coaster. We're going to make like a little texture on it. So I've done a few things here. So I've just made that part. So I've clicked on the part and clicked hole. So instead of an actual part, it's a hole. I've made it a bit bigger by dragging these around, and I've moved it down. So it's going to cut into this surface. So I click on both my pieces. And so I can hold shift. I think I have to hold shift. Yeah, to hold both of them. And then I can click group, and that'll basically perform that function. So now I've got this textured, very beautifully drawn texture of my coaster. And that could be ready for exporting. So if I want to keep this one really simple, so I want to get into more geometry. So if you want to get more advanced, Onshape's a better tool for more engineering stuff. But just to give you the full overlay, then we export as an STL. And once that's downloaded, we can open it back up in here. It usually calls it some weird name. Stunning Jofo. And I've got my coaster. That looks quite small, so I might want to scale it up. So that's Tinkercad. You so quickly can make 3D models. Now, that was a really basic one, but you can see there are a lot of tools here on the side. You can use rulers to measure things, and then there's just a ton of shapes that you can use. Oh, that would have been a nice one to use for the coaster with a little edge. Or even if we rotated that upside down, that would also look good. So you can rotate parts. So I could rotate this upside down, and then even like cut the top off, and then make that a coaster. So you got to add a lot of shapes in Tinkercad. This is kind of the power of it is that it's easy, but it's also harder to get certain functions, and that's where Onshape comes into it. So I want to go here and show you Onshape. This is a software that was made by a few of the founders that made SolidWorks, which is a fully blown engineering software. Onshape is incredibly powerful as well. It's all browser based. So if we go up here, you can see my Onshape profile. I've got a few designs here, including my wedding ring that I made years ago now. Anyway, this is the platform. It's all browser based. You don't have to install anything, and you can just go create document. And we're going to go for test piece. We're going to make a jig. So jigs are a really useful 3D printed tool, because you could, like, say, for example, if you wanted to hold a piece and have the marked out regions where you wanted to make some modifications, like there could be like you're going to drill holes. You could 3D print a piece to hold it that has holes that you drill through. So you can, instead of measuring each piece and then putting a mark and then drilling into that part, if you had 100 pieces to do, you could have a jig that you just put the part in the jig, and then it automatically shows you what you need to do to it. So jigs are really useful. So we're going to make one. And you can see here we got 3 planes. So the difference with Tinkercad and Onshape is that a Tinkercad, you drag in shapes and you cut them away or add them to make your part. With Onshape, we are going to create sketches. So we're going to create kind of like well-defined drawings, and then we're going to apply features to them. And the most basic sketch that we can do is just a 2D sketch and then the most basic feature we can apply is an extrude. So just to make that 3D. So I'm going to hide the front and the right plane. I'm just going to sketch on the top plane. So if I go new sketch, and on this plane, now when I'm drawing, I like to draw facing the piece of paper. I don't like the paper to be on an angle. I'm going to draw facing the paper. So I'm going to click top so I can see it properly. And I can start to draw my jig. So I've got all these tools. I can draw a rectangle, for example, and I want it to be centered around this origin. That's quite useful. So I'm going to say it's 100 by, or let's just make it symmetrical. And then, for example, I could hit extrude. If I rotate my view, you can see that I've made a 3D object. Awesome. My first 3D object. Fantastic. But I can do a lot more than that. So I could, for example, if I delete that extrude sketch, I could go back to here and I could click revolve. And that will take my sketch around this axis and revolve it. In this case, it revolved fully. I could revolve it. I know that just changes that in one direction by, I don't know. In this particular case, I'm going to sketch on this new face. So I've just made a part and now I'm going to sketch on that face. All I do is click on it and hit sketch. And then I want to view perpendicular. So I go right click, view to sketch plane, and then I can see my part. Now their sensor, thankfully, was not circular. So it was pentagonal. Let's just for argument's sake, make this 50. And so now I've got a sketch of my part kind of like cut out. But I'm not done with that. I want to, so if I view back to sketch normal, now I've created a relationship here between these features, and you can see that my part is black. I'm going to show constraints, and you can see that it's got all these kind of features here. These are relationships between the drawings. So this line and this point are connected. If I delete that, I can now move this in space. So I want to make this so the jig is held kind of in the center of this face. So I'm going to create another line, but I'm going to make a construction and then connect it to this point here. Okay. And then I want to say that that is 20 millimeters. So I use the dimension tool, which is, if you click D in Onshape, that's what you get there. But you can also click this button here. You can see that it's got D and a little shortcut there. So now that I've added that dimension in, this part is all in black, which means that if I try and click and drag and move it, I'm not going to be able to do anything. But when it was in blue before, I could click and drag it like you saw. So that is what my piece looked like. Now I can hit extrude again, but now I can click remove. So, and now my sketch will go down into my part. I mean, I can change the direction, but I need to cut into my part, and I want to cut nice and deep in there. So my tool, like my part, is nicely held. So I can do that. And now I've got this piece that, if you saw this pentagonal sensor, it would just slot straight into there, and basically allow the user to manipulate and do all the things they needed to do to get the job ready. They didn't have to worry about clamping it and whatnot. So this is basically, I mean, there's a whole bunch of different tools that you can use here in Onshape. I'm going to go into more depth on this sort of stuff. There's certain tools that I really want to show you guys in here, but for now, if we can just get basically comfortable with just drawing a sketch and extruding and revolving. Sometimes revolving is really useful, like how we rotated that part there. So to make circular parts like vases, even jewelry and stuff like that, you can use the revolve feature. And then there's a feature that I want to show you guys. So if you want to click on some edges, but if you wanted the part to look a bit nicer, you can add chamfers. So I just click the edges and click chamfer, selected my edges and given me a chamfer distance. I can change that. So you can change the value here, make it deeper or whatever you want, whatever you think looks good. But if I add chamfers, then it'll even print nicer and it'll be stronger at those regions. There won't be any corners and stuff like that. I can add more corners here for chamfering. And now if I click OK, this whole tool, if someone brushes past it, they're not going to kind of hurt themselves on the corner, or it's just a little softer on the edges. So once I've done that, I can, it's super, super simple. Here's my part here. I can export as an STL. So I can name my part jig and hit export. That's downloading. And then I can drag that back into Bamboo Studio. And there's my jig. And I've got all these pieces. I've got my original stand, my modified stand, and I've got our coaster from Tinkercad, and then our jig from Onshape, which is more kind of geometric, technically it's called parametric designing software. And yeah, now we can basically print everything. So depending on what materials I wanted to make, I can use different materials. In this case, I probably print everything out of PLA. None of these parts withstand high temperatures or high stress, like forces. So I could just basically slice everything and I'm ready. So I can hit slice all, make sure that I've got the right printer setting. So I actually have the Bamboo Lab A1, so I've got to that, and select the right texture plate, the right diameter, the right filament, and then I'm going to go here and click standard. Where's standard there? I'm sorry, I'm just going to reset that standard, and now we have basically standard settings for everything. And I can hit slice all, and basically it'll go through and prepare all those models for 3D printing. So you can see how quickly, like just in like 20, 30 minutes, or even less, like we can create like all these custom products that are very, very useful. I've benefited a lot with, sharing this with other companies. Yeah, if you know kind of these basic skills, you can start to put them together. So if we go back to our Figma, we've done the Onshape, we've looked at how to prepare these parts for printing. These very few basic tools, we can start to make things really, really quickly. There's a lot more tools out there, a lot more depth in each of these categories. So thank you so much for joining me in the world of 3D modeling. You could you don't even have to 3D print these parts. You can actually sell your models online as well. I'm going to do a whole nother video on how to make money creating 3D models. There's actually a lot of people out there that are making really, really good money online selling their 3D models for commercial use. There's a few people in particular that I've seen that have some really popular models. They might only have 20 or 30 models, but they've got like a nice little range of curated products that they've designed that they provide for free online. But then they say, if you want commercial use, please subscribe and pay here. And they have hundreds of members. So making a lot of money online, even just from their 3D models, not even 3D printing it. So purely software driven in that case. But I hope, you've got some basic tools now that you can go away and use to make your parts. So let me know in the comments what you want to see next, or what you make with your 3D modeling experience now. There's a whole world that you can kind of dive into, but I hope that you can start to, you benefit from 3D modeling like I have in the past as well. So thanks again, guys, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers. Bye-bye.